speaker is the Deputy Director of Commercial Operations at DIU. Defense Innovation Unit needs no explanation to this audience today. Importantly, she's also a graduate of West Point, and she is also a Rhodes Scholar. Please welcome Ms. Liz Young McNally.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we're going to right into questions and answers. I didn't have anything prepared up front.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
That's great.
I'm going to get everyone excited before the final panel here.
Well, let's.
I know it's been a long day for you all.
They're still here.
That's right. They're waiting for me.
So Jim said it in his pre-recorded introduction. Nobody needs an explanation of DIU, but I would actually question that. You know, I'm very curious about what DIU is today, where you see it's going, how it's transformed, and what your specific role is in it.
Sure, happy to start there. So the Defense Innovation Unit is the entity within the Department of Defense. You know, our role, why we wake up every morning, is to bring commercial and dual-use technology into the department with speed and scale for strategic effect. Let me tell you a little bit about what that means and how we work, and then the journey of how we got there. So, you know, what that really means is we're a bridge between many different partners within the Department of Defense. We work directly with the combatant commanders, the war fighters, to really understand what are their needs that commercial technology will be able to help address. We also have, and I'm sure I'll go into this in a bit, we have 7 different technology portfolio areas. They're at the same time out there scouting the market at all times to understand what is the latest and greatest technology out there to both help address what the combatant commanders tell us are their needs, but to help inform new needs that, quite frankly, we may not even have thought about. So that's on one end of the spectrum in terms of what we're doing to bring in the demand. And then we bring in that technology principally through the CSO, the commercial solutions opening that PTDO Marani just mentioned, and prototype that new technology. And then we're also working hand in glove with the services because they'll be responsible for ultimately fielding and scaling that technology. So that is really how DIU works today. Within that organization, my job in commercial operations is to be that interface with the commercial sector. So how are we ensuring that DIU is the on-ramp for talent and technology into the department? How are we helping lower the barriers to entry to make it easier for commercial dual-use technology companies to work with the department? And how are we helping to strengthen the defense tech ecosystem overall? Now, if you wind back, you know, why does DIU exist? 10, 15, 20 years ago, as we know, the commercial technology sector and the Department of Defense weren't working well together at all, and there was tremendous R&D happening in the commercial technology sector that we should have been able to leverage, but for various reasons, you know, things had changed. And so about 10 years ago when DIUX was started, it was really to help just rebuild those bridges. You know, we stood up our headquarters in Silicon Valley, and at that time, you know, the metrics were really about how many conversations are we able to have. Once we started to reestablish those bridges, we wanted to figure out, okay, how are we going to help prototyping and bringing this technology into the department? At the time, we had a much smaller budget, so we were only able to do that so much, and we were also very dependent on other mission partners who were coming to us and asking to use that authority that we had. In the last year and a half, as DIU has become a PSA to the Secretary of Defense and has the larger budget that we got last year, we've been able to really deploy all of that for strategic effect. Now, to your question of, you know, where we go from here, I mean, I think it's an incredibly exciting time for defense modernization, for innovation, and so we're excited about the continued projects that we're working on and how that's really an example for how we're going to be able to do more of this across the department. We're also excited about more of the cross-departmental work we're doing to help drive innovation and how we work differently. Happy to go into any of those in more detail.
I will take you up on that. So the big tranche of money came about a year and a half ago with the congressional plus up to I think it was 1.5 billion.
It was just under 1 billion, but close enough.
Yeah, okay. I'll go back and check.
Okay.
My memory may not be firing correctly. But what specific examples, other than Replicator, which was $990 million to one company for an older loitering drone, what successes have come out of DIU for the people to hear?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's many different things, number one, that we did with Replicator. We just don't talk about all of them publicly for various reasons. But when we think about the budget that we got last year, we deployed it in 4 different categories of work. So the first one was starting new technology projects themselves, launching new solicitations. The second area was, and this was because the way that we were given that money, it was given to us, and a large chunk of it was colorless. So we were able to use a second tranche of money to help accelerate work that was already going on and move it into initial fielding and production. The third category of work that we did was working with what we call the DICE, the Defense Innovation Community of Entities, working with them on other innovation projects to help drive that beyond with our services and other sister organizations. And then finally, different work that we were doing to lower barriers to entry and make it easier to work with the department. There's many different examples of exciting work that we have going on. One that I can cite is one called Project Ammo, and this is work that we were doing with mine detection underwater unmanned vessels. And it used to take 6 months to do all of the data ingestion that would be required to validate the data that these systems were using, to update it, and then to bring them back in. And we worked with a DIU prototype to bring in a number of different commercial companies, and using the latest in machine learning operations and software, we were able to get that down to just days. So going from 6 months to just days. And what I think that this story underscores, and this example, and there's many others, is that commercial technology isn't able to help us make incremental changes. It's helping us to make fundamental changes in terms of how we're able to work and operate.
So in the audience, we have a wide cross-section of industry. We have prime contractors, we have startups, all sorts of venture-backed companies, you name it. And I think the perception is that DIU was set up to help non-traditional contractors. Was it set up to do that, or was it set up to accelerate the adoption of commercial technology where everyone can play?
Yeah. I'd say all of the above, right? So, and our numbers will speak to it. Let me walk you through some of that, right? But DIU was absolutely stood up to help ensure that we were bringing commercial and dual-use technology into the department. It's also true that a lot, though not all, as I will explain to you in the numbers, of that work is done by non-traditionals, by smaller firms, by firms this is the first time that they're working with the Department of Defense. So if we're constantly analyzing our data, but DIU has issued about 550 OT projects since we've been around in FY16. If we break that down, and the numbers have stayed fairly consistent year over year, which I think is a testament as well, about 90% of those contracts do go to non-traditional companies. Roughly 70% go to small businesses, and about 40% go to a company where this is the first time that they're working with the Department of Defense. But if you look at what's a non-traditional, there's many different types of non-traditionals that are all that we quite frankly all need as we want to strengthen the defense industrial base and make sure we've got the technology so that we can continue to be the world's most lethal fighting force. And so if I break down that non-traditional number, about half of them are venture-backed companies, and then the other half are not. And then within that venture-backed category, about half are earlier stage and about half are later stage. And then if you take the other side, the other 50% or so that I said were non-venture backed, about 2/3 of those are private companies and 1/3 are public companies. So again, you see that non-traditional is actually a really wide swath of different types of companies that we're bringing in. You can also see that 10% of those companies are traditional companies. Now, almost all of those companies, given the way the rules work, are partnering with one or more subcontractors working with them as well that are non-traditional. So again, I see that as strengthening the defense industrial base, strengthening the different types of partnerships that quite frankly, we need to see to get the type of technology our military needs.
Because we have a lot of people out here who would like to work with you, any thoughts, or is it too early to think about what your 26 priorities, how your 26 priorities may shift? And then if you could go through a little bit of the process of how industry can bring things into you.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're still working on 25 now, and spending that. But you know what we're working on in 25 and what we will continue to work on in 26. I'm happy to go through that. So DIU has 7 different technology portfolio areas. It's helpful. It may be helpful. It's helpful for me to think about the work in those different ones. So I'll run through each one and tell you a little bit about the types of work that we're doing across each of those, some of the themes, and then I can close with how you can work with us. So the 7 different areas are AI, autonomy, cyber, energy, human systems, space, and emerging technology. Within AI, you know, we're really focused on how are we helping to bring AI to enable everything from at the tactical level of war, so that, you know, you could imagine everything from how we're getting hundreds of swarms of drones across multiple domains to be able to talk to each other, something like that, all the way up to, you know, how are we helping to AI enable headquarters and how decisions are made more broadly. A great example there would be the recent announcement we had on Thunderforge, which is around bringing Gen AI in to help theater level planning at the headquarters level. Within the AI front, we're also thinking a lot about AI infrastructure and then the data that will be required to power all of this. On the autonomy front, I mean, number one, we're thinking about autonomous systems across all the different domains. That continues to be a huge focus of ours, as well as the collaboration and how are we architecting that collaboration across the autonomous systems. And then finally, within our autonomy portfolio, we're doing a lot with regard to manufacturing. I was glad to hear that spoken of in the last session as well, but a lot in terms of additive manufacturing and how are we helping to spur that, which will also help with the growth and scale of all of these technologies as we need it. The third area, cyber, so that is cyber and telecom. So within cyber, really thinking about how are we using latest technologies, latest AI to think about how we're transforming both defensive and offensive cyber operations. And then on the telecom front, it's really about communications in contested environments and thinking about, you know, electromagnetic contested environments, spectrum, different things like that. Energy, we've got three big areas. One is installation resilience. The second is operational energy. So how are we thinking about how we're going to get the energy that we need in contested environments, in austere environments, really far from everything else. And then the third is supply chains and batteries, and we've been doing a lot of work there. Human systems is everything that ultimately affects the warfighter themselves. So that's warfighter lethality, warfighter resilience, warfighter adaptability. We also do some work in biosurveillance and then also with the defense health system in terms of digitizing that. Space, it's really how are we communicating in space and how are we helping to enable communications that will happen in contested environments as well as other types of space operations. And then finally, our newest portfolio, emerging technology, that's quantum, and so how are we using quantum sensors for enhanced PNT, hypersonics, and then also semiconductors. So you can see it really runs the gamut. But those are the different areas that we're continuing, that we're focusing on now, and we expect more work to happen in the future. How you can work with us. So we have commercial engagement executives across each of those technology portfolio areas. And, you know, our job is to wake up every day and help to be that front door. We also have a regional infrastructure with folks in various regions doing that as well. So you can just reach out to us. I'll actually be outside afterwards in case anyone wants to come and speak to me in particular or any of us. And we love to hear about, you know, what technology is up and coming, what should be on our radar, share more of this sort of detail with you. So that's at sort of like the basic level. level, or sort of the foundational level, not basic level, of how we can work together. The heart of how a company works with DIU is through that prototyping process I was mentioning before as well. And then the third thing is, again, in that broader role that we think about, we're really focused on how do we lower barriers to entry. So we also want to hear from you in terms of what else needs to be done so we can think about how we can help get after that.
Thank you. So multiple speakers today have talked about Secretary Hegseth's software acquisition pathway memo.
Great.
We've seen the posting on the commercial solutions opening with ultimate awards via OTAs. Curious about DIU's role in establishing that and your role going forward.
Yeah. So, DIU really pioneered the CSO, and I think we've been at the vanguard of using that within the department. For those of you who are not as familiar with the commercial solutions opening, we designed it to be a really lower barrier way to bring in technology into the department. So it starts, we curate a project in conjunction with various mission partners, and then we post an AOI on our website. And the AOI is, the area of interest is really meant to be, and you'll see them, they're written very broadly because we're looking for creativity and response, and we're also writing them in such a way so that if someone has never worked with the department before, this more mirrors what they would see on the commercial side. And again, it feels like something that is relatively easy to respond to. All we require back is, either a 5-page white paper or 15 slides. We want to allow more than that, again, to make it relatively easy for folks to apply in. And then from there, we'll whittle it down to about 10 or 15 different companies or partnerships of companies, bring them in for a pitch. If we can do a demonstration to see the work as the technology as well, we'll do that. And then ultimately we put a small number of them, usually more than one though, on contract, a prototype contract, so that competition continues even after the prototyping has begun. And then if and when it's successful, we're able to move to production without a recompete of that. I think that, we have long been championing the role of software, the integration of software and hardware in a lot of this, and so we're really excited to partner with A&S in the implementation of this.
Jim may have some questions.
Jim, as we wind down and prepare for the disruptor panel, we'll turn it back to you for some closing questions.
I just wanted to say thank you and make sure you guys understood how we structured today. In the 20, I guess, how many years I've been doing this, almost maybe even 30 years, we've never had industry up on the panel before. It's always been for warfighters or for chairman or ranking members or for co-coms. This is the first time we've really put together a construct from the lens of the incoming administration of peace through strength, and obviously the importance of the disruptors, the role, ma'am, you play as DIU in driving this disruptive cycle. And so, last thoughts, ma'am, is in terms of as we transition to the disruptors panel, what's the one thing you'd expect to hear out of them today?
I think there's many things we'll hear, but I expect to hear a lot of urgency in their voice, right? The time is now to really get after this, to take advantage of this moment we're in terms of the bridges starting to be closed between the commercial tech sector, the Department of Defense, but a recognition of how much more we have to do, and an excitement, anticipation, expectation, and real urgency for all of us collectively to get after it on behalf of the warfighter.
Well spoken, ma'am. Perfectly done, ma'am. Without further ado, we've had them in a room being fed red meat all day, sir. Right, here they are. It is the Disruptors panel. Mr. Kubasik is the moderator for today. We have Shield AI. We even have Kratos, Sierra Nevada. We have everybody. We have Anduril. We have Palantir. Sir, is there anybody I left out as you take the stage? You mean the man with the long hair? Mr. DeMarco, I already said that. With all that said, sir, go ahead and cue the intro. Here you go, sir. Yes, sir, it's all good. Go ahead, come on up. Go ahead, Hassan, hit the intro.
Okay. Just attach it here. Okay, start. One button like this, right? The green light.